So Flames. I don't know what Conroy's doing. Just hanging around. So we know that Depot is, he's counting sticks. And what would be the first order? What's on the to-do list for Craig Conroy? We know that the draft is coming. There will be a U18 championship tournament that's going to be. Every team needs to take a look at that one.
Roster's been finalized for that.
Tej is going to that one, along with some others. But there will be some. There's some things for Craig to do, but in terms of the roster and roster work, what's the priority list as you see it for Craig as we get into the off season here?
And we'll assume all exit meetings have been done with players, right?
Yes. Yeah. We'll assume that everybody's done their thing. Everyone's gone.
Staff's unpacked the season.
Yeah. Players have all been drunk and have sobered up since and have gone on their merry way.
They got drunk again and then sobered up and then,
Yeah. Don't they have those? And you're not talking about the long, painful meetings that they have to go through every player and have everyone's opinion from management on them. And
let's assume.
Let's get past that.
Yeah, that all
That's
the
pretty boring.
The mental work has kind of been done. You have a Shillington extension. He's UFA.
I don't want to get cracking on that. Yeah.
So that would be one that would be on the board. Now, we're led to believe that there's really not a lot of drama to expect here, that this is Shillington knows what he's got. The team's happy with him. He's happy with that whole thing, that this could be as close to being done. It could be any day.
Is that what we're being led to believe?
Well, this is what we're kind of led to believe, is that we're gonna get something done. The player's happy here. The team's happy with the player. He was already making $2.5 million.
Yeah.
Now we talked about this previously. You don't want to go long term, Red, on a Shillington deal, correct?
Oh, did I say that? If I said it, I'll stick to it. Sure.
Well, what is he, guys? I would. The conversation starts. What is he?
I don't know. I don't know what he is. And I wouldn't want a long-term deal.
How do you go long-term on a guy when you don't know what he is? You don't want to overpay. The agent doesn't want to give up too much if he improves. It's just a really hard thing to do with the kind of mixed bag results he's had over the course of his career. He went from 7th or 8th defenseman to top 4 when Darryl put him with Tanev. He missed 20 months, came back and kind of looked somewhere between a second and third pair guy. I don't really know what he is. So,
well, it's
what
not
would a deal look like long-term, Dean?
Well, I mean, when you say you don't know what he is, I think that's overstating it a little bit. If he's between a second or third defense, then he's an everyday NHL defenseman who skates well.
Right.
I don't know that he's a big point producer necessarily. But I don't think there's great hand-wringing to be done over handing him a contract here.
No. I'm just saying
this isn't.
If he's played every night this season with Chris Tanev from the beginning of the season to the end, he's a top 4 defenseman, and that commands sort of $4 to $5 million depending on how much offense is there. If he's playing on a third pair with Pahal, that probably dictates you're going to make between $2 and $3.5 million. It's a very different number of minutes, and the roles get paid very differently. So if you don't know the difference between a second and third pair, what's the number long term, and why would the agent give up the ceiling if he does blossom into a second pair?
You're not doing. If you do long term, you're very brave. I would say 1 or 2 years.
This reeks of a 1 year, $2.5 million deal, because that's the season he got paid for that never happened. It's a great meet in the middle, and you can come back together and figure out more about where he is on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I don't know how often guys come back for the same dough. I don't know that guys get raises. And I think that probably he's a guy that gets a raise if it's a 1 or a 2 year deal in that 3.
I think it'll be around 3, 1 or 2 years, $3 million.
You've very much changed your tune, Ryan, on Oliver Shillington.
I think the whole reason that we think he's going to re-sign here, and he's a free agent that got past the deadline, is because this is a unique set of circumstances. Would it be understandable for both parties if they understood that the Flames did a solid to Oliver Shillington, paying him $2.5 million to not play hockey last year? Is that a fair assessment? That both sides would be like, we did you a solid here. Yes, you did do us a solid.
I just don't. Are you clear? That's how it works. Is there insurance there? Like I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just
Do you think the player's happy with how the Flames treated it in terms of the cone of silence it surrounded? Like we don't know what happened.
We're all left to guess, right? But from the way outside, it would seem like that he came back and played. But at the same time, this isn't a team they got D-men falling out of the cupboards either.
Well, they got lots of third pair.
He's a 26-year-old guy who skates really well.
Yes.
And
if you want to squeeze and get him if he'll take to it, then they should just announce it. I don't know what if he's doing a 1 or 2 year deal at 2.5 or whatever he was at. Why would should be done?
Well, that's what I'm wondering about. It seemed like everyone was this is going to get done, no sweat. But maybe they wonder if he's a 5, not a 4. And that doesn't sound like a huge difference, but it is. It just is. You shelter your third pairs pretty heavily and the minutes aren't nearly there. Is he not going to run a power play? Like,
yeah.
Are we worried about a relapse in whatever you never told us happened before? That's why I keep coming back to a 1-year deal, because there's just too many unknowns here.
I said 1 year 3. You're at 1 and 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to play the inflation game on 2.5 from when he signed it 3 years ago, sure, whatever.
That's all I'm saying is you don't often see guys that there's a bump. There's just always a bump, whether or not you really feel like he's played 200 games, which is not a lot for a guy who's 26. To your point, but I think that I don't think there's a wealth of defense there. I think they would love to have him in the fold for another year or two. And maybe by then you do find out exactly what he is, even though now maybe on the other side for Shillington and his agent, I'm a UFA at 26. I skate like the wind. I can get 2.5 pretty much anywhere I want.
I would think so. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I could probably go to market and get 2.5 in any place, and 2.5 in a tax. You're right. So I don't know. Maybe it isn't as easy as we think it is.
And if you knew you had Chris Tanev coming back, I feel much more comfortable telling you what Oliver Shillington is.
Keep alluding to this, and I don't think that
I can't imagine.
Well, no, I'm not saying bring back Tanev, or they're going to. It's just like if you're drawing your lineup, I just don't know where to put him.
I still think that Conroy's they're going to have to get some sort of a veteranish defenseman.
I agree.
They cannot come into no, they can, right? But I just think if you're truly trying to build, even if we're not going to make the playoffs, you're going to have to get an NHL.
Yeah, especially if you're telling your veteran players that you want to compete next year. Because, Nazem alluded to that, and I don't think he's pulling that out of midair, making it up. I think they do want to compete. They probably also want to have the option, if it doesn't go perfectly, to get back into the top 10 and sell assets at the deadline. But again, whether it's, there's a bunch of veteran right shot defensemen that you could bring in. And if you put one with Shillington that's covers his own fort well, and that allows Shillington to use his legs to get up ice, that seems like the type of fit he's worked with. It's really a hell of a mixed bag in his career. From 8th guy to 2nd pair.
Another item on the to-do list, I would suggest, is to figure out the crease in some way, shape, or form. And some of that is probably out of his hands a little bit. I don't know what I would love to know.
Lots of it.
What the Markstrom conversation was at the end of the year. Because Markstrom gave the media, gave the fans nothing. I talked to Conroy, and that's all I'm going to say about it. And that's his right. But without knowing, I want to stay, trade me RFN. Without knowing where he's at, it's tough. But I think it's probably fair to say that Wolf needs to be on the NHL roster. We've talked about this for 2 years and then a year ago and all of that. It wouldn't be nice for him. You got to get him on there.
He was your best goalie
Vladar's coming off injury. So I don't know. You don't make a Markstrom trade just because you've got Vladar for another year, but this is something that's got to figure itself out over the next 4 or 5 months here. Obviously.
Yeah, and I don't think now the next month is when it happens. I think when the dust settles after the playoffs and you've seen which teams have been let down by their net minding, that's probably when we always see that middle of June to the end of June leading into the draft is like blockbuster trade season. It's the haul for Larson. It's, a Subban for Weber. Like a lot of these monster summer deals happen at the run up to the draft. That's where they'll probably move on some goaltending. I just don't think he can move Ladar when he's hurt till he's healthy again. And Markstrom holds the cards. How much he wants to let Connie hold the wheels up to Markstrom.
It's a funny one.
I think the situation's soured enough that they're gonna. It just has that feel to me.
I don't even know if it's sour. It's just so obvious that the best path forward for both sides is without each other. Like Markstrom wants to win.
Markstrom wants to win.
What the fuck is he going to win in the next 2 years here?
That's what I mean. You're saying he's not sour. I'd be sour if I signed a 6-year deal with a team that was supposed to win and they dumped everyone and they had my name. I wouldn't care about that, but he was sour about it. He could pretend that he wasn't, but he was definitely sour about his name being in the media. It's sour, and it's fine. It's okay. We don't have to always be hugging and kissing. He wants to win.
He controls the process. Just ask for trade.
Get out.
Yeah.
Bye. I hope he did. He didn't say what he said to Conroy. Maybe he said.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they both looked at each other and said, "Hey, it's been great. I think both parties. We'd love to see you succeed elsewhere. We'd love to get some young assets back. Go win a cup before your career's over."
In public, Conroy comes across a real nice guy. You close that door to the office, and he's a mean bastard.
Is that what it is?
Right?
Oh yeah. I didn't want to sign you anyway. You silly Swede. Get the hell out of here.
Get the hell out. You silly Swede.
Yes.
Language, Craig. Language. And if you need to spin it to your veterans, you don't have to squint that hard to suggest Dustin Wolf is ready to play more games at the NHL level. He's improved as I think you can sell that to your cadres and whoever else needs to be sold.
You're also getting assets back, right? And Craig hasn't taken many.
What Russian ninth defenseman?
Lyubushkin is available out of Toronto.
Oh, geez. Yeah. But yeah, Connie hasn't taken a lot of straight futures deals like the Zadorov one was, but everything else has kind of been tied to a player that could help the roster pretty quick. Kuzmenko comes in, Sharangovich comes in. You've got Miramanov on the roster already. Like the sales pitch might be, look at this really good player that's on the team that wasn't before.
You mentioned a name. He is also on the, I would guess, the to-do list, and it doesn't have to be because he's got a contract for next year. But Yegor Sharangovich had a tremendous season, a career season, one that you would think would have him thinking, this is a good place for me to play, but you just don't know. Making $3.1 million. He's got a year left.
It's a deal.
You can start talking to him this summer. But what does the player want? And what are you prepared to pay a guy who just had a season like he did?
It's a fascinating question. What position does he play next year? That's another
31
one.
goals, 59 points in 82 games. Was a centerman for part of the year. Was not a centerman for part of the year. I don't know where. I think it probably
first liner and a fourth liner.
Fourth, yeah.
Everything in between.
What is he?
Both
What
wings,
are you,
center,
Yegor?
all four lines. Swiss Army knife, Dean. That's what he is.
He's toolsy. That's what I like to say. He's a toolsy guy for sure. But he's a guy that can score, and he's still young enough that you can give him a deal. But what's the goal? I'm for Craig Conroy and Jerome and all those guys when they sit down. Do you have your vision board? We're going to here's what we want to be and by when. And if you sign Sharangovich to a 5-year deal, a 4-year deal, a 6-year deal, whatever it is, does that make sense on the vision board for when they see this team culminating or starting to peak in terms of being a playoff, perennial type of a playoff team? I don't know.
It's 26 this summer. I think he's probably got a good 4 to 7 years of good hockey left. It's not like there's a ton of hard miles on the chassis. This is not a 220-pound power forward that fights. But just looking at the player's tools and the stats, if that's a centerman, he gets paid. If it's a winger, it's less. That's just what the market has shown you. So how you view him down the middle and how the agent views him, it probably has a lot to do with how you frame a contract. It would be pretty easy to say, okay, here's your production as a center iceman, here's your production as a winger. And we know he had a lot more shots and a lot more goals on the wing, but he also was a pretty responsible center for a guy that hadn't played a ton of it in his career. If you agree with the agent on the position, I don't think a deal is hard to get done because there's a lot of comparables out there. But if Dan Milstein's trying to sell you that he's a number one center, this might not go well.
Well, that's the thing. On what tact do you take? Well, we got to sign this guy because we might get a deal now. And if he's going to be a center, then maybe we get or do you use the other side? And it's not the same as it's not even close to the same as a Huberdeau thing, Red. But I almost wonder, okay, so you scored your 30 goals and you played center. Is there a rush to sign him? Do you bring him back? You know what? Yeah, you're a 30-goal guy and you can play the middle when we need you. It's going to cost us more than maybe if we'd have taken a dice roll in the offseason, but we'll pay you. You've proven again for 2 years in a row as a Calgary Flame, you're versatile and you score. We're more confident in making a bigger investment, and it might cost us more, but we're prepared to pay you now that we're more comfortable knowing. Or do you feel like you know enough?
First of all, I think you have to know the depths of I think you need that vision board and to have a little more, because what's their cap space? And I know that Ryan, yes, he's a winger and he has played center is kind of what we're referring to him as, but the Flames don't have a damn centerman that can, they don't have enough high-end centermen. So
they're missing one on the roster big time. He was there out of necessity more than him being so good they put him there.
But he did excel. He played pretty damn good, did he not? And you maybe know the stats better. I'm not interested in going, well, what was his comparison between wing and center? I thought he had a decent season at center. I didn't notice him out of place. I didn't think that his game downgraded significantly.
The offense was muted, but I mean,
it was muted for a chunk, but then it came back near the end of the season. And maybe that's just the way it happened. But yeah, he was on a torrid pace before he moved to the middle.
Yeah. So if you want to just look at his 1 year here, he doesn't get on to anywhere near the top line until a month in. And so then he goes on that, scores 6 straight games, heater that I think bridged November and December, if I'm correct, against some pretty good opponents in there. Then after Lindholm moves, they slide him into the middle.
Right.
It's pretty quiet offensively. Yes, he does score some goals here or there, especially the longer he plays. Then they move Zeri to the middle. Once they're eliminated, he gets back to the wing and he scores again. If you just sort of lined up, ignore October, he was playing on all 4 lines. They didn't know where to put him. He's not a 4th liner. We know that, but he spent a lot of the month there for whatever reason. They would break him down to build him back up, get him to buy in, whatever. But his center stats might be, I'm a half point per game guy. And his winger stats might be, I'm a 3/4 point per game guy. But I don't know that. I don't think he's a center.
I'd wait.
I think he did a great job.
I'd wait.
And so if you can get a deal on a 30-goal winger, go get it. But don't go pay for a 30-goal centerman this summer.
Yeah. And I don't know for him, because this is another thing. Maybe we're wrong, but it sure does not seem, if they trademark either way, it just does not seem like this is going to be a lock for a playoff spot. Let's be safe and go there. There's going to be another challenging season for the Calgary Flames. If you've got Sharangovich, who's 25 goals-ish by the deadline, and you've got Kuzmenko, who's 25 goals-ish by the deadline, Conroy could again be one of the sexiest ladies at the ball come deadline day. And if you're committing to this thing, then Sharangovich is a good player. He came here, he scored 30 goals. That's great. He's 26. Kuzmenko, 28.
Yep.
Just outside of that window where you probably want to be on the vision board is you could argue. So do you again go back to market and trade 2 guys that are on expiring contracts that are scorers it's not the same. Like Tomas Hertl is a center and he's an elite player. He's got but we see what kind of assets you can get for these guys. Now, I think maybe fans are a little disappointed with what you got for Tanev and what you got for Hanifin, but it's better than a kick in the pants. And I just wonder if what you potentially get there, you might be better off in the long term than having Sharangovich at 30 and 31 years old when the team might be good again.
Agreed.
I think I would wait. I think some of it has to do with salary cap and how all the rest of it's going to play out. If I sign him up, I'm not that excited with him because you're right. I think if he has a good year, can trade him, or I can decide to sign him then. And if he earns it, he earns it. That's fine.
Yeah, you've got so much cap space. If he wants to turn into a 40-goal guy and you have to pay him, great problem to have. You've got lots of cap space.
Yeah.
I think, Craig, like we talk about the philosophical thing, like how much of a teardown this becomes is a big piece of this puzzle, like the biggest, because if you know that they're intent on collecting top 10 picks the next 3 years and then trying to be really good in 2027 versus like, no, well, if your contract's expiring, we'll trade you and we'll try to collect as many young assets as possible. And maybe if the right things click and we add a center and go get a veteran defense, we can sneak in. Like those are two very different approaches on what you do with Kuzmenko and Sharangovich.
Right. And again, I think your vision board joke is probably true because who's the defenseman you're going to go get this offseason? It's like, so play it out, the different scenarios. You might have 3 vision boards, 4, because if you think that you're going to do it as quickly, on the fly, they call it Dallas. Well, okay. Who's your defenseman? You can't go with the defenseman you have. You can't.
They have 2 top bar defensemen.
Is Markstrom staying? Okay, he is. Okay, we're going to retool this on the fly. We're going to who's your defenseman? Who can you get? I just went through the list. You're squinting.
Mm-hmm.
There's some guys, but there's nothing that's sexy, and the sexy ones are going to want to go to contenders, not to
100%. So
to mentor young kids while you miss the playoffs for 2-3 years.
Like, but you're saying you're not. This is the one where you're retooling on the fly, and you're going to be on the cusp of making the playoffs.
Well, I mean, that might be your vision, but go sell that to.
I know, but this is what I'm saying is we're playing out the different scenarios, and different scenarios dictate different approaches to guys like Sharangovich and right. If you're going out and you're going to go sign 2 defensemen I don't even know who the hell they would be. Or you're going to trade for 2 defensemen and you're going to retool this. And you think in 8th place next year, well, then maybe you sign Sharangovich and go, yeah, we want to lock you up. Right? Like, but I don't see the path.
It's too hard. Too many things have to go right.
Yeah, I don't.
It's not impossible, but God, it feels close.
First thing is you have to keep Markstrom. Okay, does he want to stay? Great. We've decided we have Markstrom and Wolf, and we'll ditch Vladar for a bag of pucks if we have to. But there's our 2 guys. Okay, great. Now you got your goaltending sorted out. Who are your defensemen?
Yeah, and who's your number 1 center? You're still missing one of those if you're gonna make the playoffs.
Oh, well, I was going from goalie.
No, but I'm with you. You need to add a D. And hopefully Shillington could be a second pair with that guy.
And this D can't be just Joe Dick in his hat. This defenseman has to be able to perform and play. You're not going to get Lyubushkin and go from where you are and make the effing playoffs.
It's got to be a top 4D.
A legit top 4D.
Yeah.
Like,
is Joe Dick a free agent?
And how did he get that helmet exemption for his hat?
Right. Yeah. The hat.
If you take his hat, they'll trade him to you, though.
Is that how it is? Yeah.
But Brady Shea someone's gonna break the bank for him.
Brady Shea ain't coming to Calgary.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, if Calgary's a piece away from a cup and they lost in the final, Brady Shea might come to Calgary. That's not where they're at here.
Hey, Brady, you like Carolina or
No, it's going to be a guy who's got some limited options.
Yeah.
And looks at it and saying, maybe I come from on a 1-year deal where I'm going to play 20 a night. And maybe next summer I can get a better deal than what I got this year.
And so that might be a Matt Dumba. I saw Brett Pesci's out there. I think he'll go to a sexier spot than this.
But the Dumba had a few years where people were quite high on him, and now the shine.
He turns 30 here.
And you know what? But those are the types of names. I think
that's the types of guy that's going to be here.
My point, though, to you guys is those are the types of names you might get. Those aren't the types of guys that are going to get you into playoffs.
No,
they're stopgaps. They're placeholders. Yeah. Like Brandon Montour is not signing in Calgary. He's going to make some big money somewhere with a contender. That's how it goes.
But I'm trying to say this retool where you're fighting for the 8th spot. I'm not even saying a lock in the playoffs where you're fighting for an 8th spot. Matt Dumba ain't doing it. Shea ain't coming here. You're going to have to trade for a defenseman that can be impactful.
And you don't want to do that.
I don't see the path to this quick retool. Hence, no rush to sign
to
these
sign
guys.
those guys.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree with you entirely. I just think this owner has always said to the GM, make it happen quicker. Don't give me the long play. Like speed it up, speed it up, speed it up. And so
if Conroy was smart, he would just say they don't want to. You know, they refuse to sign. Just lie.
Yeah, and you know what? I think in both Sharangovich and Kuzmenko, those are guys. They are not budding superstars. They're older players. They've been in the league for a while. They've kind of established, I think, what they are and what they're going to be. And they're very good players, but they're not franchise altering guys. But who you get in a trade for them might be.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of these teams, they aren't bad for 1 year and pick high and then turn it around. It just doesn't really happen that way. But if you squint this year, you got a couple first rounders, top 10 pick. Next year, maybe a little higher into the top 10 with more picks. It just, as I sit here today, it just feels like the smarter thing to put your pen away. Don't extend guys because they were pretty good for you in a non-playoff year.
Yeah, and if you wanted to go say, okay, Igor, we love you. We'll give you 7 times 2, and then we can eat half and move you in 3 years. Like, whatever. I feel like it's a neutral move, but unless there's a deal where Connie's like, shit, I have this guy worth X and they're willing to sign under, there's no rush. And I will push back a little on the established long time in the league. What is this? Igor's 3rd season and Kuzmenko's 2nd. So they might not be at their ceilings, but there's a really good ballpark of what a great season from these players looks like. It's a 35 to 40 goal season for Kuzmenko where, you just load him up on everything offense. Power play 1, ozone starts, puck distributors.
I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I got it there, but.
And then Sharangovich is like, yeah, he's probably a second line winger, complimentary piece on a cup champ. And if he's on your top line wing, you're not that good. Sorry.
Like, I don't think you're going to, and it's a different scenario, but I don't think you're going to be 4 or 5 years down the road and be like, shit, we had a Marty St. Louis and we let him get away.
No.
Like, I don't think that's what you're looking at with the
I think this was that big year for Sharangovich, right? He's coming off 16 goals last year.
He's had some good years. He might be a hell of a player, but he's a good player that can help a good team. He's not a
he's not a core piece.
He's not a centerpiece for a squad. No. I like him. And
he's had
a guy where if you did sign him, I was like, I don't give a shit. Look, you clearly see he can play wherever. He played all 4 lines last year and still got you 30. Like, he can do things. He might be a guy you need but no rush at all to sign.
Yeah. If it's not a deal, I'm not too worried.
And I guess also on that list, and it doesn't have to happen because there's a contract, but we've talked a lot about how many wingers there are and the type of year it was for Andrew Mangiapane. I think people are like, well, you're going to be a trade. When do you trade Mangiapane? This is another one of those things where I'm not holding my breath because you're trading him potentially at the lowest spot possible.
Yeah.
It was an awful year for him.
You have no cap issues.
0.
You have plenty of space to keep them, even though you have tons of wingers, and you're going to give them away to save cap space. That's what you're doing. Who's taking them? What are you giving up to get Andrew Mangiapane after the last 2 years?
$5.8 million Andrew Mangiapane.
No thanks is what you're going to hear a lot of.
Yeah, you eat half and you might not get much back.
Right.
The only way you would justify it is if you feel like you need to open a spot in the top 9. And to be fair, like if the right injuries happen, that they usually pop up anyway. Like Jacob Pelche went down in training camp and didn't play on the big club till well into the new year. That opened the room for Zarian Pospisil to get ice.
Now, I think probably much like the market, we couldn't be more down on Mangiapane. I think that we're kind of let down, and it's been a disappointing year. He's not happy, obviously, and neither are we. And I just never thought about it. When we talked, what are you going to get for him? Pinder, you said, well, I don't, maybe
third.
If you eat half, you might get a third. It's like, ooh, shit, that's not great. But that
prospects, like
you may not even get that, right? You might.
Who's excited?
You might be in a spot where that's just an expiring contract at the end of next season, depending on how his season goes.
It falls on his head, and it should. You wanted the money, you earned the money, and then you shut it down.
Yeah, I don't know that he's
There was
trying
an
to be bad.
injury mixed in.
Okay, sorry.
No,
it's just
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just playing
Hold
devil's
guys
advocate.
accountable too. Like fuck him.
I know.
Score.
But we
Did you
had
notice him be a pain in the ass once this year? Once?
It was not as regular, but I didn't see a guy not trying. I wouldn't go that far.
But he was.
You would never say that because you think that if you cross that line that you've crossed over the spot of
If I was Rhett Warner and I was playing through all kinds of stuff that the media didn't know about, and someone said that I wasn't trying, I'd be fucking hot. So I don't like to say guys don't try. I don't see a guy not trying. I see a guy that looks a little lost, that's had the best puck luck in the world one year, and it's not there anymore.
Did you see him agitate at all?
That's the thing. The numbers are one thing, but even when he wasn't scoring, he was a dog in a bone. He was a pain in the ass. He was turning pucks over. He was think of it in the net, in the crease, pardon me, in front of the net, face washing and getting under people's skin.
Yeah.
You guys
haven't seen that in 2 years.
You guys are techies, so you could do the split screen.
Techies.
Play the year where he was playing well beside last year and tell me he's trying this hard.
Can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at the shooting percentages would tell the whole story on the goals. But I do agree that, like, when he got to the higher traffic areas this year, you notice it because, like, geez, we haven't seen as much of that. Where's that gone?
You didn't hear his name. There's how many games did he play where you just did he play?
And the other thing, and it happens, he's lost.
And who did he play with?
He's lost the step, and he wasn't blessed with speed to begin with, right? It was his body position and kind of his intelligence that would get him to the areas where he needed to be. And I think he's lost a step and isn't there's not the extra, whatever you want to call it. There's not that intangible stuff.
5.8 coming.
He's definitely not worth 5.8. No question about that. Do you see if everything goes right for him again? Is he a 20 goal guy? I think that's probably what you're selling on the market, isn't it? If you're trying to trade him.
Again, so this is part of, you have to explain this. We don't want Andrew Mangiapane to be shitty. I want him to score 35 again, please. Right? So, I absolutely think 20, 25. But
it's the outlier when you to Ryan's
it's not
point.
even close. It's
you look at the 5 years where he essentially, and we got lockouts in there, but the 5 years he's a full-time NHLer. 17, these are his goal totals: 17, 18, 35, 17, 14. So flirting with 20 outside of this year, and then 1 year he got 35. So
20. Get 20.
Which he hasn't done except in the 35 goal year. And he
gets 18 in a 56 goal year and 17 in a 68 goal season. Let's call those prorated low 20s to mid 20s. But yeah, I think if someone else is looking to buy low on Andrew Mangiapane, what they're telling themselves is we're going to get him a fresh start, change of scenery. This was the Dylan Dubé thing before all that legal shit came down. It's a guy that screams change of scenery is going to help. Go play on the third line in Toronto and get to 20 goals again, and you're a helpful part. Yeah. Right now, he's just clogging up spots for young kids.
Third highest paid forward on the team.
And there's some high paid forwards on the team.
Yeah, no, we understand he's not earning the money on the contract. The contract was earned on a 35 goal season. That's a tough spot. But
it comes, and we started the conversation. So Conroy, what do you got to do? Well, Mangiapane, there's no rush there. Sharon Govich, you got to get a deal and play. I'm not sure you do. I'm not sure there's a big rush there. What about Kuzmenko? I think we're all in the same. It's the same thing. You're
up and down, baby.
You're hanging on for no way are you talking extension. I don't think with him this summer. And Shillington, he's a UFA, so that would be probably most pressing. And then you got to figure your crease out, and that's a lot of it. As we kind of said, I feel like it's out of your hands. It's what does Markstrom want? And it's not like you're just going to do whatever it is that he wants. But if he doesn't want to be here, then that probably is top of your priority list. We got a Markstrom deal we got to get done.
I agree. Yeah, unless you really want AJ Greer back, which he was a good Warrior, but you find guys like that on waivers or at the end of September every year, and you kind of got some guys in the system you might want to look at anyway. I mean, they clearly like Dryden Hunt more than some people did.
I looked at, he's got another year.
At what? Like, you could put him in the A. That's where he spent most of his time here.
Freaking guy, ski mask and handguns. You get a multi-year deal when you're freaking Dryden Hunt. What are you doing here, fellas?
Traded for Radim Zahorna.
Miso Zahorna. So there you go. That's a little flame chatter.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.